Everybody, peace. Welcome to the Sorry to Bother You Basketball Show. Wherever or however you're listening, we're so grateful to have you with us. As you guys know, I'm Sean Cottle, and we've got a wonderful show for you guys. We're going to be recapping South Carolina's major victory over TCU this past Sunday, and we're also going to be discussing the high level of play that's been coming out of the Big Apple and the New York Knicks. So we're going to be discussing all of this and then some, guys. We're not going to waste any time. We're going to get right into it. But before we get started, if you haven't already, please be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button as well. That way you guys can stay updated on all of our latest content that we post daily, day in and day out. Okay, enough selling out. Let's go ahead and get right into it, guys. Like I said, South Carolina is coming off a huge victory, perhaps their biggest victory of the season against TCU, ninth-ranked TCU, this past Sunday. As you guys know, I talked extensively about TCU and why they were grossly underrated going into the season. However, now I believe they are appropriately ranked as a top 10 team. But South Carolina defeated TCU 85-52, and the game wasn't particularly close at all. South Carolina jumped out to an early lead due to their high level of defensive play, forcing TCU into a bevy of turnovers. South Carolina was led by, excuse me, by Malaysia Fawali, who had 20 points, shooting 8 of 15 from the field, coming off the bench. Tessa Johnson had 10 points as well, coming off the bench. Tina Paopao had 11 points, coming off the in the starting lineup, going 1 for 3 from the 3-point line, 5-9 from the field. Raven Johnson also had 11 points, shot 4-7 from the field, and actually shot 50% from the 3-point line, going 3 for 6. And that's huge for Raven Johnson moving forward into the season, because we all know that she has not shot the ball well from the 3-point line to start out the year, which is a little interesting because last season she made tremendous improvements in her 3-point shot, which was one of the reasons that South Carolina was able to win a championship last year, because teams were no longer able to play off of her. And what teams have been doing this year, though, that because she hasn't been shooting the ball well so far, teams have been playing off of her, and that's clogging up the paint and making it difficult for the other guards in South Carolina to gain scoring opportunities. But now that Raven Johnson's getting back into a rhythm, it seems, from the 3-point line, that's going to cause the defense to just stretch out, and it's going to create easier opportunities, easier attack lanes for South Carolina. And Ashlyn Watkins had 6 points, and perhaps the play of the game, coming off the bench with the dunk on the fast break. And some people are calling that the greatest dunk in women's basketball history. And I would venture to say so. I saw it live, saw it with my own eyes, and the reason why it's so good is because she dunked technically over somebody, on somebody, and I don't think I've ever seen that before in a women's game, professional or collegiate. So yeah, I would venture to say that that's perhaps the greatest dunk that I've seen in women's basketball history so far. But about South Carolina, a lot of people were ready to write South Carolina off after their performance against UCLA. And it's pretty interesting because that loss to UCLA is probably the best thing that could have happened to South Carolina at the start of the year, because it allowed them to reset and to refocus and to reshift their focus to playing championship level basketball. And if we remember last season, Dawn Staley talked about how with this group of players, she has to be on them more, and she has to be nitpicky with them more because they are younger and they're more susceptible to mental lapses. And you could tell that they had a little bit of mental lapse, a little bit of a hangover, championship hangover going into the season, and obviously that carried over into the performance against UCLA, and it showed. And there's no doubt in my mind that after that game, South Carolina went back to the basics, and Dawn Staley was able to reshift the focus for that locker room back towards their championship style of basketball, and their efficiency and their consistency both on the offense and the defensive end. And you can tell there's a distinct difference between the team we saw against UCLA and the team we saw against, not just against TCU, but also against Duke and South Carolina. So that loss against UCLA could be the catalyst for South Carolina winning a championship this year. And let's be sure to earmark that, guys. Let's be sure to put a pin in that moment right there against that with that loss to UCLA. Because that's what can happen to championship teams. They suffer a loss, and that galvanizes them to play championship level football for the remainder of the season. A great example of that, different sport, college football, is Alabama during the 2015 season. They lost to Ole Miss at home, changed their quarterback to Jay Coker, and from that moment on, Alabama played tremendous football. Derrick Henry went on to win the Heisman, and Alabama obviously goes on to beat Clemson in the national championship game. But sometimes it takes a loss to galvanize a championship level program and to force them to understand that there's another level, there's another stratosphere that they can be playing at that they haven't gotten to yet. And like I said, that's what could possibly be going on in South Carolina right now. But based on what I've seen with South Carolina these past 2 games, there's no doubt in my mind South Carolina is still the best team in the country. However, it will be difficult to repeat for South Carolina because there's just so much talent in women's college basketball. And like I said 2 years ago, and now we're really starting to see it see it today. Women's basketball is at its peak, and this is the most talent that there's ever been at one time in women's college basketball, and there's no doubt in my mind about that. And that's because the training and the level of basketball has increased drastically. And this is the best talent. This is the most talent at one time I've ever seen in women's college basketball. And I think the game is just going to continue to improve. And because there's so much talent, it's difficult for teams to be as dominant. So I do believe gone are the days where you have UConn winning 3-4 championships in a row, or even South Carolina possibly winning 2 championships in a row, 3 championships in a row, or Tennessee winning the multiple championships in a row. It's going to be much more difficult for teams to repeat, even with these elite level programs. And obviously couple that with NIL and conference realignment. My goodness, how college athletics has changed in the past year. But I do believe South Carolina is the best team in women's college basketball right now, followed by Notre Dame. By the way, side note, Notre Dame is going to be tremendous. They're going to be extremely talented and a scary team to play once they get Maddie Westfield back. Once Maddie Westfield gets back healthy and she starts playing, and you couple that with Hidalgo and Miles and Citron, wow, I mean, that might be the team that can compete with South Carolina. But let's not look too far into the future. Let's be in it right now. South Carolina, the best team in women's college basketball. Let me know what you guys think. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. Leave your thoughts in the chat room. Looking forward to hearing all about it. In our next segment, guys, we're going to be discussing what is going on in the Big Apple right now. I mean, the high level of play. Are the Knickerbockers the best team in the Eastern Conference? We're going to discuss all that, guys. So be sure to stick around. You're not going to miss it. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back. In case you missed the previous segment of our show, we were discussing South Carolina's recent victory over TCU and what that means for them moving forward for the rest of the season. And in this segment, guys, we're going to be discussing the New York Knickerbockers, which is something that we don't do often on this show. But listen, after their most recent performance against the Toronto Raptors, in which they won 113-108, led by Karl Anthony Towns, who had 24 points and 15 rebounds. My apologies. The question needs to be begged: are the Knicks the best team in the Eastern Conference right now? Um, obviously the Knicks currently are sitting at 15-9 with the 4 seed behind Orlando and Boston and Cleveland, but we do know that Orlando is most recently suffered an injury with Franz Wagner, who is going to be out for indefinitely, if I'm not mistaken. But credit to Orlando, they've been playing tremendously without Paulo Banchero, their best player, and it remains to be seen how they'll be able to play without Franz Wagner, which is another one of their best players. And obviously, Boston 19-5, and Cleveland, who we talked about earlier a couple weeks ago, is legitimate. I think one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, up there with Boston as well. But the New York Knickerbockers, are they the second best team? Are the best team in the Eastern Conference right now? I was just sitting at 15-9. They look much more explosive than they did last year, and it's clear to me that New York has won that trade with Minnesota, and that was something that I was extremely concerned about with Minnesota. People were saying that Minnesota traded away Karl-Anthony Towns so that Anthony Edwards could have more space on the floor and that he was ready to lead a team. And it's not whether or not Anthony Edwards is ready to lead a team, is does he have enough talent around him? I don't care how talented you are. We're looking at it right now with Nikola Jokic. You could be the best player in the league, but if you don't have talent around you, your team's not going to be successful. And with Anthony Edwards, he needed a running mate, and Karl-Anthony Towns, in my opinion, was the perfect running mate for Anthony Edwards because their games complement each other. Cat doesn't really clog up the paint because he can stretch the floor, and obviously Ant is great at getting to the basket, getting to the perimeter shot as well. They complement each other extremely well, and it was surprising to me to see that Minnesota traded away Cat, and I'm still unsure as to why. I'm sure it'll all be revealed at some point, though. But however, it's clear to me that New York won this trade by letting go of Julius Randle, who still has the proponent of allowing the ball to stick in his hand no matter where he plays. But with New York, Cat fits well with Jalen Brunson and OG Anunoby and Josh Hart and a plethora of talented guards. Mikal Bridges as well, the talented guards that are in New York. And the only cause for concern I have with New York is still their defensive play. They don't have a great low post presence defensively. Cat's a great offensive player, but he leaves a little to be desired on the defensive end. But obviously he can hold his own and he's solid, but we're talking like an elite level defender in a low post. They don't have that yet, and that hurts New York at times because New York actually gives up some of the most paint points in the NBA, and that can be a little bit concerning. But offensively, they look efficient, they look dynamic. They can score from all angles, and they can score from all actions in the secondary and the half court. Their half court offense has gotten much better in New York. By adding that pick and roll option with Cat and Brunson or whichever guard has the ball in their hand. And it obviously opens up a lot of three-point shots, but also a lot of corner shots as well, because where teams like to double with Cat, they normally like to double from the baseline, which leaves that skip pass to the corner open, which you're seeing that New York has a lot of three-point shots in the corner, and that's because of teams trying to double Cat. So is New York the best team in the Eastern Conference? I won't say they're the best team in the Eastern Conference, but I will say what I said before the season started, and that is that they're the second best team in the Eastern Conference. Even though Cleveland is playing tremendous basketball right now, and obviously they sit atop the Eastern Conference right now with the best record at 21-4, I still think Boston's the best team in the Eastern Conference, number one, and I still think New York is better than Cleveland top to bottom. And the good thing about sports and the good thing about life really as a whole, is that life always has an autocorrect. Life always autocorrects. And then when you look at it in sports always autocorrects as well. Eventually things revert back to the means. Listen, is Cleveland a 21-4 team right now? Yes. Is Cleveland going to finish with the possibility of only losing, let's see, we're a quarter of the season way in the season, Is Cleveland going to potentially only lose 12 games during the season? Probably not. They'll probably lose more games than that. I think things are going to revert back to the means, and it's going to autocorrect. And Cleveland's a top 3 team, no doubt about it. I think Boston's the best team, and like I said, I think New York Knickerbockers, I think they're the second best team in the Eastern Conference. I think they're better than Cleveland right now, but that'd be a great second round matchup or a potential Eastern Conference Finals matchup to see. But like I said, life has autocorrect. Life has a way of reverting back to the means. Oftentimes we're prisoners of the moment, and we get caught up in the right now and what we see, and it's difficult for us to be forward thinking and to look 3 and 4 steps ahead. But it's important to be able to do that, because if you're able to look 3 and 4 steps ahead in life, you're able to see where things are trending towards and use your pattern recognition to see what things actually are and what they're going to be. Obviously, using your discernment as well on a spiritual level. But that's why it's important to understand that things always revert back to the means. Life has autocorrect, and that's something that's important to remember. But New York Knicks, I believe, are the second best team in the Eastern Conference right now. But let me know what you guys think. Leave your thoughts in the comment section. Leave your thoughts in the chat room. Looking forward to hearing all about it. But with that being said, guys, that's it for our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a wonderful show. If you haven't already, please be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button as well, so you guys can stay up to date on all of our latest content that we post daily. And if you'd like to support our network and our company, you can do so by following the link in the ticker below, streamelements.com/sorrytobotheryou'llc/tip. And guys, we'll be back again same time tomorrow with our college football show and our NFL show. So till then, guys, continue to